Okay, guys, here we go. This is Silicon Reel, the video podcast dedicated to the people of the London technology startup scene. I am Brian Rose. I also host a show called London Reel in these same studios. It's with three dudes, sometimes girls. We've got guests like Tim Ferriss. We got Max Kaiser from Russia Today screaming about Bitcoin. We got Howard Marks talking about smuggling cannabis. It's pretty crazy, so check that out if you'd like. But we're here to talk about tech. My co-host is entrepreneur Colin Pyle, who runs online language schools, gourmet coffee companies, drives motorcycles across China, and is representing Movember.
That's pretty good. I think that's the best intro I've ever had for me.
Really?
Not bad. Yes, Movember is coming along.
It's coming in.
It's looking better.
Did you trim it?
No, I tried today actually, but they were too busy. But I still need to raise a bit more cash. It's pretty pathetic. I'm at about 40 pounds. So,
jeez, you just looked at me like
I know, like neither one of you. No.
Okay, how can we do that? How can we do that?
See what I can do. So I'll post. I've posted it on the last video with Brian from Pixelpin on the YouTube. I'll tweet it out. And just, yeah, 5 pounds, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, whatever you can afford. It's a good cause. I met one of the founders a few weeks, actually about a couple months ago, and it's a great story, and it's for a good cause. So. Okay,
done. And you got stuff going on with coffee right now, or what's up?
Yes, the Kickstarter campaign is going live as we speak. So we're taking the piss of George Clooney. If you have an espresso machine and you're tired of drinking crap coffee, then hit up the Kickstarter campaign. We're developing sort of a specialty coffee organic blend for an espresso pod. So
awesome. Yeah. I have an espresso machine and I just don't like the coffee. I buy the premium coffee, and the other day I was like, Jesus, if I do make it, normally I'm drinking Bulletproof for the London Real episodes, but for this I try to keep it real. So
cool.
Good. We'll be checking that out. Awesome. Our guest today is Mr. Ivan Mazour, who is a Russian-born, London-based serial entrepreneur, investor, and author. You're the CEO and founder of Ometria, which is an e-commerce analytics software company. You're also founding partner of Innova Kapital, which is an early stage venture cap fund investing in UK-based technology startups. Did I get that right?
That's straight up. That's really good.
Ivan, welcome to Silicon Reel.
Thank you for having me.
It's a big pleasure having you here. One of our first guests on London Reel was a guy by the name of Mike Mokadas, and he was this Iranian guy who had left Iran when he was like 8 years old and made like a 6-month tour across Europe to escape to Sweden. And he was actually one of the founding partners of Sony Ericsson, one of the first smartphones. And he helped create airplane mode on your phone. So if you ever switch to airplane mode, that was something they did. But he had this concept called an immigrant mind. And his whole idea is that when you come to a country as an immigrant, you think about everything differently, and all three of us are immigrants in this country. You don't have a plan B. You're willing to do things you wouldn't normally do in your country. Your pride goes out the window. You'll drive a cab if you have to. And you also, I think you see holes in like the London scene where other people just, notice, oh yeah, that's the way it works. The tube doesn't run at night. You can't get a taxi on a mobile phone. The NHS is this way.
Right.
And I was just thinking about that today because we're all kind of in that pool. And, Ivan, I was wondering, for you as a guy who wasn't born in London, do you think that gives you kind of a different way of looking at things, or has that helped you as an entrepreneur?
Definitely. I mean, this immigrant mind that you just mentioned, I feel like I have that, right? And my journey wasn't quite the same as a 6-month trek to get here. But the day we left was the day the tanks rolled into Moscow, and the White House, the Russian White House, got fired on. And it was the whole perestroika happening. Communism was collapsing. There was a revolution going on, basically. And my mother said that was it, time to get out. So she took me, we picked up, we moved here. I saw cornflakes and yogurt for the first time. Like that didn't exist. We went to the corner store and we landed and we saw all this stuff. We're like, whoa, what is that, right? And then she worked and I worked my way through the education system, basically. And you start off as someone who doesn't speak English, and it's hard. You don't fit in. Nobody really kind of helps, especially back then. Now London is a multicultural community. People are welcomed here. Back then, we were kind of the odd ones out. And so I picked up the language, and I went through international schools, and I got into kind of the standard British system. I was the first Russian guy to get a King's Scholarship to Eton. And I basically just kept going, And the other thing is, I reckon it's easier for us to fit into all sorts of social circles. And I don't know if you find the same thing. Anyone who's born here, they have their circle, right? They grow up around it. Their parents said it, or whatever it is. Whereas I don't feel like I really connect or relate to any one, but I feel like I fit into all of them. And I enjoy hanging around with all sorts of people. I enjoy meeting all sorts of people. I find it really easy to just get along with everyone. And some of my British friends aren't quite the same from that point of view.
I find that I don't have that many British friends. I like them, but I find maybe it's because they have backup plans and they have, like you said, family, social groups. But when you come here, you don't know anyone. First of all, I think you're attracted to other immigrants. Like I look at my friend base and it's like South African, Canadian, you know, all these different people.
I think as an immigrant, you don't have that, again, that support system of going to school here for 30 years or whatever. So a lot of the British kids maybe have enough friends already to sort of say that, and they're just busy, right? You can only, I think, really have a handful of really good friends, because it takes time to foster a good relationship, and some people just don't have the time.
Yeah, you know, there's one other aspect of that immigrant mind, which is weird, because people think immigrant and you think, you know, a lower skilled worker, that kind of thing. But when I got here as an immigrant, I worked in the city of London, and I had this idea, and I bet you do too, maybe even you, is that you look around and you're like, you know what, I think I can do this better than these people. You know, I think I've got I will work harder, I will sleep on someone's sofa, I will do this. I can't go home, you know, and I can't go back and be shamed. I got to make it here. And so I find that you almost take it to another level. It's almost like a weird superiority complex. I don't know if you ever thought that.
It was more that I didn't want to fail, right? So I got here, and I remember the first couple of exams and everything, I was coming like bottom of everything because I couldn't understand. You'd go and study like chemistry, but without knowing the technical terms in English, you'd have no chance, right? And I didn't want to be at the bottom. And so I just had to work extra hard to get to the top. And that happened in education, and that's basically happening now in everything that I'm doing. So it definitely gives you a lot more energy, a lot more stimulus to just get on with it and succeed.
I'm sure you've heard every Russian stereotype joke in the book.
Hit me with one.
I
hope you have one ready. I'm ready to come prepared.
I know all the American ones. So, I mean, they don't even faze me anymore. In a weird way, I almost play up on my Yankness. You know, as a Yank, I can get away with so much. And maybe you can as an immigrant. But I mean, like you said, you were here back in the day, but now it's such a multicultural city, you know. But back when you were here, what, 20 years ago?
Yeah, 22 now, yeah.
Then it was
crazy,
quite unique, and you wouldn't hear Russian being spoken on the sidewalk. Here, you'll hear it. You'll hear so many languages.
Yeah. I mean, now actually, so around Central, around West, probably 1 in 10 people are Russian. You walk around, on my walk home, 20-minute walk, I probably see 4 or 5 families wandering around, all speaking Russian. So it's changed a lot, you know, compared to what's what.
I think it's one of the only multicultural capitals in the world. I've lived in New York, and I love New York, but when people get to New York, especially as immigrants, they want to be Americans. Like, they assimilate really fast. Like your taxi driver from Niger, he'll be like, I'm American, and I'm like, how long have you been here? 6 months! And it's like, but here, I think everyone keeps their individuality. You know, the women rocking the burqas in Knightsbridge, they don't care that, you know, people are doing this, and I don't know, it's nice that way.
Toronto is hugely multicultural as well, but they're even more segregated, I think. In Toronto, there's like Greek Town and Little Italy, and they just really sort of separate. They don't intermingle as much as I find here. I find it here, it's very much kind of just, you're just here.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is turning into a London Rail episode, so let's get down to business. You do a lot of things, Ivan. You got a really interesting story, and I know you're involved in a bunch of different pieces. But I wonder if you could talk a bit about Ometria now, which is, you know, your e-commerce analytics software company, and then something you had mentioned to us earlier. I'll talk about big data. You know, a good buddy of mine just finished a master's degree in computer science. You know, Paul, and he's gone to New York to work for like a big data company. It's just a huge field. There's a lot going on. I think a lot of big corporates have no idea what to do. To be honest, I think they're being sold a lot of bad things by a lot of companies. What is going on, you know, with Ometria? And we always ask, you know, what have you done? What are you going to do? And why do you think you'll win?
I like those questions. Definitely.
I don't know where
So it's my favorite thing to talk about right now: big data and e-commerce, right? And we sit at the intersection of all of that. And I started off wanting to do a web analytics company, right? So this is the big one. I've done a few businesses before, but I wanted to do something that was going to be scalable and truly, truly big. And so I thought, okay, what's the best business model right now? And that's software as a service, because it's just exponential. You keep adding people, and if you treat them right, and if you provide the right product to them, then they won't let go, and you just keep adding people on and on and on. And then I kind of looked around at some of the best kind of companies that had done that recently, and web analytics looked like a really good option. But it was very, very full of very successful companies. So it's a segment that's kind of already busy, right? You've got Kissmetrics, awesome company, awesome founders. Same with Mixpanel, they're everywhere. And so I looked around the various other industries and verticals where those products wouldn't actually solve the problems. And online retail, so e-commerce, that was where it wasn't working. So you can put in Google Analytics, something like that, and they can tell you how many thousands of people came to your site last month. They're not going to tell you who the best customers are. They're not going to tell you when the best customers on the site, what products are performing well, what trends are happening in terms of that, what your most profitable individual products are, and who the best people to buy those are as well, and how to get more of them. All of this sort of stuff could be turned into an algorithm, right? It's at the end of the day, it's just data, right? It's data about people, and you use it to do a better job for them, to provide a better experience. So by using our tech, a retailer makes their customers happy and makes more money. So that's like a win-win-win. And then you couple that with the software as a service business model, and that's like a win for the founders, the employees, the shareholders, and everyone else. So this seemed like what I should be doing right now. And I took a year to go back to Cambridge. So I did mathematics at Cambridge. That was my degree. I took a year to go back, do one more year, just focusing on statistics, probability, computational mathematics. So kind of what you'd call big data, but more the mathematical side of it, and started looking for my team to make this happen. And last year, I finished in July last year, came back to London, got the team together, September, and in February we launched this company. So it's pretty exciting. I probably haven't even answered your questions.
No, that's a great start. Really I was just thinking, are they recruiting like madmen out of Cambridge for these grads?
So it's a very, you know what, let's switch topics for a bit, because that's a fascinating subject, right? Yeah. So when I was in Cambridge, I made a lot of awesome friends, just really cool people. A lot of them wanted to go into consulting. That was the big thing. So when I did my undergrad, that was 2003 onwards, that was everyone going into banking, right? And then we had the credit crunch, everything collapsed. Now everyone wants to be in McKinsey or Bain or whatever it is, right? Okay. That's the one thing they want to do. Very few people wanted to be entrepreneurial. So I was vice president of the Entrepreneurs Club. There's a club called QTech, Cambridge University Technology and Enterprise Club, and there was a president and a couple of VPs, and so I was one of the VPs, and it was great, you know, but it was small. There were maybe 20 of us out of 11,000 students, and you think, what's going on? And there's an awesome organization, and you should probably have those guys on there. Entrepreneur First, Matt and Alice, right? Ex-McKinsey. They're finding the people that don't want to join the Entrepreneurs Club, right? And they're persuading them, just take a few months out before you go and sign up with one of these consulting firms or something. Just come and spend a few months being an entrepreneur. We'll put you in a room with other people like you, and if you create something good, it's going to be really good. And you know what? Their track record proves it. So I think they're turning that on its head, because it's very hard to find entrepreneurial startup style people in Cambridge, in my experience, and you need more and more organizations like that can actually actively sift them out and sort of funnel them towards the cool tech companies that are here in London that are dying to get access to that kind of talent.
Is that because you want them young, straight out of school? Do you think once they go work for McKinsey for a few years, they're different people?
Yeah.
Why start them that soon?
It's opportunity cost too, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So you go work for McKinsey for a few years, and it's just, your salary's huge, and it's just all of a sudden to step out and try something with an entrepreneur
It's hard to make the decision. I mean, it's you're sort of pot committed in poker terms, right? Like if you've put everything in this career and your next step doubles your salary from 150 to 300, you're like, why am I going to do any of this? Yeah. Like, I don't know if you heard the story about Amazon. I mean, I hope it's true, because I only read about it on the internet. But when Jeff Bezos wanted to start Amazon, he went to his boss, and he was working on Wall Street, and his boss looked at his business plan and said, this is an amazing business. It's going to do really well, but the person starting it isn't the guy who's on $1 million right now, right? So you've got the best job you can possibly have. Why are you going to throw it away to do a startup? And he was like, screw that, I'm going to go and do it anyway. And now he's Amazon. And I think that problem is faced by a lot of very smart people, and not many people have the strength to go and make the decision he made.
So start them young, that's what you're thinking.
Yeah, definitely.
Or at least put the idea in their brain that they can do these things.
Absolutely.
As grumpy old men, we talk about all the time about, well, we meet a lot of people at the drink about that are like, I'm 23 and I'm going to do a startup. And sometimes you think it might be good to have a couple years of experience in a corporate world.
But I think that, we're talking, that's not necessarily about founders, but about people sort of supporting the founders, which I think is, one of the main things that runs the ecosystem in the Valley is, Stanford and Berkeley and all these great schools that are funneling into all these startups, not necessarily as founders, but as sort of the engineers. And
but they need to have an attitude as well, right? So their attitude needs to be the sort of the startup style attitude. Yeah. So if somebody's waiting for 4:59 to start, sort of doing the last bit of work, and then 5 o'clock, bam, they're out. Yeah. Or if somebody's at the interview, I mean, we had this, I remember hiring the first person for Ometria, Malaysia, and the guy we hired is awesome in every way. But until we found him, and we had people coming in and they were like, yeah, so we want $4,000 a month, and this is before they even explained why they were good for the role. Right. You know, this was a junior role at the time. It was literally an internship position, and you have all these people who have such high expectations before delivering any value. And the startup person, you come in, you deliver value, and you show so much promise that, you know, as founders, we can't possibly not give back, right? Yeah. Like, and that's missing, I think, a lot. And it's around here in London that it's best, but once you start coming out of that and you go to the universities, the mindset's still old school. It's still how much salary can I get, when can I get out of work, that kind of thing.
Whose fault do you think that is?
I think it's because the tech community is new. You know, Silicon Valley's had that for a long time. Startups are fun, right? But they're a lot of work. They're a big time commitment, a big cost commitment, a big emotion, stress kind of commitment as well. And as an employee of a startup, that's true for you as well. Mm-hmm. And so you have to become accustomed to that. That's got to be part of what you want to do, part of your nature. And we've only been doing it for what, 20 years, reasonably, maybe less than that. So I think by the time we have the same historical pedigree as Silicon Valley, you know, give it another couple of decades, I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, definitely. In this area, it's infectious. Like everyone's talking about it around here. I just want to go back to big data real quick. I mean, you said there's a lot of exciting things happening. For people that don't know what it is or what's happening, can you just give a layman's explanation?
Yeah. I mean, so the big data as a term is actually, it's incorrectly used all the time, right? Like it's hugely complex data sets that are impossible to compute and analyze and manage using standard technology. And so big data technologies were created to make sure that you could actually make use of that, you know, process it. If I always forget the statistic, but you know, YouTube for every hour of time that passes, 120 hours or something like that are uploaded. Right. So how do you keep up with that? And that's where the big data tech came in. But the reality of what's happening in the world right now is that it's kind of medium data. So we're a medium data company. You know, it's a hard sell. So we call ourselves big data SaaS for e-commerce. It's a really simple kind of elevator pitch. Right. But in reality, it's the little bits of data that you collect and you put together in the right way and you use to power something, whether that's a better experience to your customer or, you know, preferably in our case, a strategic decision about the business. That's what we're really trying to help people do. We want online retailers to understand what they should be doing to improve their business in a sort of general kind of holistic way. It's the medium and small size data put together in a big overview that I think is really driving the companies forwards. Okay. But otherwise, it's what you said. A lot of companies are selling their product, calling it big data, but probably not delivering on the value that they're trying to suggest they can deliver on.
Yeah. And I want to get into that. Yeah. I want to know more. So where are you guys now and what's your plan for the future? You know, where are you located, employees, you know, financing rounds? Like, just to get an idea where you guys are at.
Definitely. So we're just closing a round now of 600K. We're relatively happy with that because we're quite oversubscribed. We're taking angel. So although I've been in to see a couple of VCs, there's a couple of VCs I'll be super keen to work with. But equally, as an investor myself, and I've spent quite a lot of time doing tech investment, I know the balance that needs to be struck between it. And right now we've got an awesome team, and so bringing on board an extra person could be amazing, but it could disrupt that as well. So we've surrounded myself by the absolute best angel investors that know the e-commerce space, know the SaaS space, and we're just putting that round together now to close by the end of December. And the team is 9 people full time, but we're normally on about 12 or so in the office, you know, a couple of interns, some contractors, and just pushing forward really, trying to expand to about 15 by the middle of next year. First revenues are going to start hopefully next week. This is the exciting time right now.
So you've been in development up until now in testing?
Yeah, so we've been in development until May. So launched in February, launched the beta version, launched the company in February, launched the beta version of the product in May, tested that, and then released the second commercial version early October. So basically free trials, 1 month free trials started in early October. We've just come to the end of those and we're just now converting everybody onto the paid accounts. Which takes us from being a startup, hopefully, to being a growth company, and that will be pretty cool. So,
and are you hitting the pavement, like trying to talk to these big companies, or is this the kind of product where people can just show up and sign up, or do you have to kind of close individual sales with different retailers?
It's both. You know, we spend so much time. So myself, I've got 3 co-founders, 4 of us putting it together. So 2 of us are literally hitting the pavement. But actually, sometimes. So the other day we were voted 6th hottest Russian startup by Mashable, right? And so half the team is is Russian. 2 of the 4 founders are Russian. Half the team is Russian. We've got Russian product, Russian website, a presence in Russia. It's that's our big market after the UK. But after that, 10 signups straight away. So it would take me a month of hard work to get 10 signups, and then you get one article like that, and it's just like bam, done. So it's a combination of both. The actual integration is easy. So for an online retailer, if you want a platform that we support, you press a button, it's free, it appears. After 28 days, you love it, and you pay. Or so we hope. We're just about to find out now.
Okay. And so you got these dual interests. You got people in Moscow, people in London. Do you outsource your tech?
No. So you know what? That's another key issue that I'm always quite keen to talk about, right? So I did that before. Of all of my ventures, I did a wannabe startup. A lot of people who are like young and they're like, I want to do a tech startup. Yeah. So I did that without knowing what a startup was. I thought, let me just build a tool without understanding that around a software product, you need a company. This is a long time ago. And we built a task management platform, right? And it was mainly because I felt like I couldn't find anything on the internet that did what I needed to do. Collaborative, small team, 10 people, how do you run your tasks? Now there's a million options. Asana is probably the best one. They've just wiped the floor with everyone, right? But back then we hired 2 guys in Uzbekistan, $1,000 each a month, right? Good, but not super amazing. And then we just realized what was wrong with the situation, outsourcing. So you do everything over Skype, and then you put together a project plan, you send it over, and then what would come back would be completely wrong. And then you'd do it again, you'd fix it up, and then, a month would pass and nothing would happen. And then some guys, built a company called Wonderlist and took €1 million and built what took us 6 months in about a day, basically. And I realized, no, you can't do this, right?
So you weren't saving money outsourcing.
Yeah, no.
We were losing opportunity costs.
Everything. We were losing everything.
Time is money, right?
Exactly.
Big time.
Not to mention the frustration and everything else
and
that
the
goes
headaches.
on. Yeah, we got stories about outsourcing. And where do you want this company to be, like in a few years? Do you want it to be you want Amazon to be using you, or?
So actually, we're almost bringing Amazon tech to the mid-tier retailers, right? So it's a great time to be doing this because a lot of one of our customers is a company called John Smedley, 200-year-old company. For them, e-commerce is a tiny blip in the history of that brand, and they get the value of data, but they weren't developed as a data-driven company. They're not like Fab.com, which is literally a data-driven e-commerce company. So a tool like ours allows them to learn in the most easy possible way of how to leverage that data to become more profitable and more successful. So it's a great time to do it. But Amazon and all the big boys like that, they've got this down already. There's not a lot we can offer them above and beyond what they have. So we expect us to be the leading brand across Europe. The US isn't a major focus. We've got one customer from there, but it's not a big focus for them. But UK, France, Germany, huge markets. Russia is growing 20-30% plus a year. Turkey, even more than that. So all these markets are coming up. We want Ometria to be the one tool that drives the strategic decisions that all these companies are making over time. And hopefully on track for a Series A in 2015.
Okay, good. Let's get real. Now it's time to hit him with the hard questions, yeah? I'm going to go first, unless you got something.
No, not.
I had a buddy before that went to, where did Paul graduate from? I don't know. It was somewhere in the middle of London.
Imperial, I think.
Yeah, Imperial College. And, he was working for some of these big data companies, and they were having these clients like, I don't know, like these large conglomerate, pharmaceutical companies or things that sell products at Boots. And they were running their big data and then coming to them and really just giving them old school marketing advice. So they would be like, oh yeah, and they would just give them these general concepts, and they weren't actually using the data for like specific granular things. They were saying, you should do this. Then they would come back in 3 months and say, well, that didn't work. And then they were saying, you should do this. How do you know that you guys aren't going to do the same? I mean, like, how do you discern what ultimately is almost like a human judgment, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. Again, it's something I've thought about long and hard. When I started this, I thought, we could automate all of this, right? There's humans doing merchandising, web analytics, all of this. Why do you need a human? Let's just make a machine that can do all of it and just run the company for them, right?
Spoken like a true statistician.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I very quickly learned people don't want to kick people out of their jobs, right? So the head of e-commerce, instead of saving money, and I thought, it's a great opportunity to save money. Instead of paying ridiculously high salaries, 150 grand each or something, you could build some software to do the job. People don't want to do that, and that's absolutely fine with us as well. So now we've switched to being able to empower the people that are doing their jobs and let them do it properly. So we're we're basically, I mean, as one single example now, we've built a feature that allows them to, with one click, to identify customers that bought at Christmas last year and haven't come back since. So these are people that have forgotten all about your brand. You know, time moves very quickly these days. There's loads of online sites. Your competitors are literally one click away. It's not like back in the day when there was no competition. Now you sort of, you know, Google on, you know, do a search on Google and press back if you don't like what you find. So for them, being able to reactivate all of those customers that haven't come back for 12 months at the perfect time, which is Christmas, because they know they bought last Christmas, that's like a guaranteed win. That's, you know, it's an obvious one. And of course we measure the revenue that comes back so they can actually see, yeah, you know, all those guys came back. So there's some obvious ones that aren't just kind of pulling the wool over there. You know, it's genuine insights that we're doing.
Okay, but you are making human decisions, because ultimately you have to say, let's do this, this, and this.
Definitely.
And they're a bit of a guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And people don't like the black box approach, right? There's some awesome companies doing multi-device attribution, for example. But even then, I mean, the tech is just absolutely phenomenal. You know, a friend of mine, I saw him for breakfast the other day, AdBrain, right? Literally a company has grown to, I can't even mention it, but the highest valuation I've ever seen within a 1 year period, right? Amazing tech. But even then, as they're building it, a lot of it is currently kind of quite optimized by humans. They're making sure that those customers that they have, which are huge customers, those customers are getting the service they really need. You know, they're optimizing that ROI on it. I don't think it's currently possible. And whoever, you know, whatever companies are saying it's fully automated, I don't think that's currently possible. There's always a kind of, I don't know if you know the concierge MVP approach of the lean startup. There's always that kind of concierge service. There's a little guy sitting in the back. You can't see him, but he's always helping people out.
Have you seen that ad recently? It's on TV or something, and it's got some little baby, and he keeps hitting like an iPad and ordering encyclopedias. And then the guy at the encyclopedia calls up China, and he's like, "We're back!" And they start shipping all these trucks full of encyclopedias, and then it's for Adobe.
I like literally Adobe Marketing Cloud. We love that.
Yeah. Do you know what's happening? You know, I guess that's a classic example of black box where no one's really thinking about what the data's telling them. Anyways, that was just one I came up with. Colin, what do you see in this business?
Yeah, I always, again, I'm not sort of math brained or developer or coding, so I don't always understand the value in the technology behind the scenes. So I guess maybe explain a little bit about why, sort of what differentiates you from competitors in the space, because presumably it's a pretty crowded space.
Sure.
SaaS, you know, model has been proven and works, and big data, you know, analyzing big data and utilizing it to increase your sales is also proven. So maybe just say why, you know, tell us a little bit about technology.
Do you know what? I get asked this question quite a lot, as you can imagine, right? And so after this Mashable article came out, we got a whole bunch of VC interest, inbound interest, and it's all kind of analyst level. And some of them have been great, but some of them have been quite sort of rookie, you know, straight out of university. And this is one of the questions that's always on their list,
from
right?
Rookie.
Yeah, from the on everyone's list, not just from the rookie.
No,
but before I answer, I always hit them back with name a competitor, because it allows me to frame the context of my answer. So if you can think of a competitor, then I can try and explain around that.
Okay.
If you can't think of a specific name, I can give like a general description of what's going on in the industry.
Sure.
General then.
General?
I don't know a competitor.
Yeah.
I know some people in this space, but I don't, again, I know this new company called Visual DNA, but I don't think it's
not quite the same.
Not quite
but
the same.
So this is it. So the thing is, there's a lot of competition for the marketing budget and the mind share of the e-commerce companies, right?
Yeah.
So the head of e-commerce, the marketing manager, merchandiser, all of that, they're constantly inundated with, hey, we've got some tech that's going to use some data to help you make more money, right? And so there's huge competition in that. And so immediately everybody out there thinks, wow, you know, it's just too hot a space, there's too much going on, you're never going to be able to build anything. But once you start actually getting into the industry, you can bucket everything quite easily. So there's some guys doing like product recommendation, and there's some guys doing like basket abandonment tools, which is, you know, that email that comes back if you don't actually buy anything. And there's all these little kind of widgets, there's little pop-ups that come up and tell you, you know, 20% off if you add 20 more pounds to your basket. And there's companies doing all these individual things. But the thing is, in the middle of all of that, right, you have the brain, as it were, you have the thing that powers the decisions that you make about your business. And currently, you have two polar opposites in the industry. And you've got Google Analytics, which is free. And in Russia, there's a similar service. You know, Yandex is the Russian Google, as it were. So there's Yandex Metrica, which is the same thing. And it's totally free, but it's a web analytics tool. It can tell you where your customers are coming from, but it can't tell you which ones are profitable. It can't tell you anything about products and stuff like that. So it doesn't help an online store. It would only help like a blog, you know, something like that. And on the other side, you have Adobe Marketing Cloud, right? Adobe Marketing Suite. And it's 200 grand or something like that. Plus you need an analyst that's trained in Ometria, which is the analytics platform that has been bought by Adobe and does what we do. So you're talking, you know, $250,000 to start, probably 3-year commitment. You've got this analyst making 70 grand a year minimum. It's a big hit. So the bigger companies, they can definitely afford that. Small companies are stuck with Google Analytics. And so the opportunity was literally, you know, where is the holistic platform for online retailers as a product developed by what the retailers need, right? So we've got an amazing UI UX team in-house, amazing designer, but we've also started from the very beginning by identifying what the requirements are of the online retailers. So our investor director is the head of e-commerce. We have a bunch of consultants and contractors involved that are all levels. So some are analysts, some are merchandisers, some are kind of strategic directors of e-commerce companies. And we put together exactly what was needed just for that specific niche. So not the sort of the other subsets of, hey, let's use data to create an ROI marketing, you know, through attribution or through emails or so on. But we just created the strategic platform that could power the company going forward in future. And so we do the majority of something like Adobe or IBM Core Metrics or Web Trends, which are the 3 big companies that were in this space. We do almost everything that they do. We're cheaper. We are much easier to set up. We're not as customizable as those tools, right? So if you want a super custom setup for your very specific business, sure, those companies will do it, but it's a lot more expensive. If you're a mid-tier retailer, you're making 10 million a year, you know, you get the value of data, you don't really know how to dip your toe into it, we will put you on the right track straight away.
I was wondering how you spend your marketing dollars, because I just quoted an ad from Adobe, so obviously they spent their marketing money enough to get me. Of course, I'm not going to buy their product.
We were talking about George Clooney before.
Yeah, Clooney before. I mean, how do you spend your marketing dollars? How do you get out there? I mean, you're a startup. I'm going to start asking this question to everybody.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
I think that if I could watch that for all the guys that have come through, I would definitely love to hear those answers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you're the first.
Yeah.
So each industry does it in a different way, right? So I think what we're doing is quite relevant to literally the vertical that we're going after. So conference is absolutely huge, vital to get the brand out there, vital to get known. So the tech press is great, and you get a lot of interest, and you get a lot of interest from VCs and stuff like that. But the online retailers and the people that we're selling to in the online retailers, they don't really read the tech crunches and the Mashables and so on, right? So we got to get to them, and they go to very specific events, so e-commerce expo, internet retailing, things like that. So we're always present at those. From next year, we're going to start taking stands. So we've already signed up to a couple to take stands. This year, we were just going, and we built up a very strong network already. So people would make introductions at those events and say, oh yeah, do you know about these guys, etc. We've trialed PPC, but it's not particularly huge in terms of, you know, right now we're integrated with Magento as an e-commerce platform. We're just going on board with Hybris and Shopify, and we've got an API, but we don't particularly want too many clients using the API because it's hard work from both sides.
PPC is pay per customer.
Yeah, pay-per-click. Sorry, pay-per-click. Yeah, so you know Google AdWords, the paid advertising, right?
Okay.
So in order for us to identify an online retailer, 1 million to 50 million in revenue, who's on the Magento platform using Google pay-per-click, like Google AdWords, I mean, you're waiting a week before one guy clicks, right? It's slow. It's a slow burn. So for us, it's more of a brand awareness play. And from next year, partnerships and biz dev. So we've got a partner in this building right here. I mean, I was literally just about to pop in before. I might come and see them afterwards. A very cool Magento agency, you know, do really cool work. We've already got a client with them, so you know, they build their website, we do the analytics. We're just going to keep rolling that out. So you know, it's a good value proposition for us to get together with the other tech providers that don't do what we do but already have customer base, so we can cross-sell with some of the system integrators that are building the sites because they get to offer a special service above and beyond and get a revenue share. And then business development, I mean, then yeah, we need some guys going out there and literally just, you know, making phone calls, going to offices, trying to explain the value of what we do and just building up those leads.
Yeah. I was wondering, because you're an investor too, and you're obviously an entrepreneur, and I was wondering what lessons you're trying to learn as the entrepreneur from the investor side of your split personality and being like, don't do this, because if I was investing in that company, I would not want you to do this or do this, you know, because you kind of come from two different sides.
So I love it. I mean, basically that's why I invest, right? I've got a very specific approach, and I don't know that many people that have the same approach, but I'm not investing for the capital return on that specific specific investment, I expect a much higher capital return through Ometria, and I'm optimizing the chances of that by making the investments that I make, right? So imagine my previous businesses were in education, in property. They weren't very tech. The one tech thing that I did was 42 Tasks, the task management app, and that wasn't even a startup. That was just a bunch of guys making a website and just waiting for people to turn up, you know? So then I realized how important it was to truly understand the business side, and I knew I wanted the big data side. So I did the university thing. I went to Cambridge to do the kind of the mathematics aspect. But then how do you very quickly become a professional tech founder? You know, how do you sort of shrink 10 years worth of experience into 1 year? Well, you know, we built, with my CFO, we built up quite a big capital pool through a lot of the property development we were doing with Innova Kapital. So the two founding partners of Innova Kapital, about 5 years old now. We did a bunch of property development. We built gated communities outside of London. We built, you know, we redid and remodeled apartments here within London. So we took some of that and we started investing. Small amounts. I mean, you know, literally tiny seed amounts. But the companies that we invested in, I built very strong relationships with the founders. And that was the point. The point was, you know, here, have some money. I'm not going to be an annoying investor. I'm not going to sit there trying to tell you what to do with my money or tell you what to do with your business. I'm doing this because I trust that you're a cool guy and you know what you're doing. I'll give you my suggestions and thoughts based on my experience, which is probably not as much as yours, but still at least I have it from lots of companies. And I'll listen to you in terms of what you think is happening out there, what you think is the best way of building a business. And so now I've done that 16 times. I've got 16 investments. One has failed, you know, it happens. And with EIS, I actually get 60% of the money back. So it's only 40% loss anyway, but that 40% was totally worth it. It was an e-commerce business, believe it or not. It literally explained why it was so important to have these kind of data-driven decisions available, and it helped me put my team together. We used them as a case study. We helped them. We tried to help them as the core founding team. And of the other 15, one is very close to an exit now, which will be my first exit. So exciting times.
How long from investment to exit? Just out of curiosity.
So for this one, it's just been over a year and a half. Not that long, but I haven't started. I mean, it's my third year of investing now. I'm still very new as an angel investor.
So 3 years actively investing.
3 years
and
actively.
You haven't seen an exit yet.
No, I'm projecting 7 years. So right. In terms of my cash flow that I've allocated to this, I've made sure that I can do the same level of investing that I'm doing now for 7 years, 40 companies in total, and then hopefully at the end of 7 years, something's got to start hitting. Otherwise, I really made some bad decisions.
So very statistical approach to investing. You wrote a blog on this on your blog. I'm going to read it later. It's interesting. You actually remind me of Jeff Bezos, because this is how he decided to sell books on the web. He saw the you know, exponential growth of the web. He's like, how can we best take advantage of this? Books have this, you know, really long tail, and he was like, that's what we should do.
This is the best day ever. I'm going to take this clip. You've just likened me to Jeff Bezos.
We can both become famous.
I'm going to dine out on this for the next couple of months.
But it sounds like that's also why you decided to do, you know, the company you're in right now, because it's highly scalable.
Exactly.
You know, all of these different things happening at the same time, which is interesting, because most people that sit in that chair, it's a passion project. Who are we kidding? Tribe Sports, High Life, the list goes on. You know, the passion project. Except I was thinking of, I'm going to give you another prop here. John Collison of Stripe sat in that chair, and the reason he started Stripe is because his previous company, they found it really frustrating to make internet payments. So as opposed to, I actually found this really frustrated in 1999 at my .com startup, but I wasn't John Collison, so I decided to start up that company. I just found it frustrating. But it sounds like you are looking at the failures of your previous companies and trying to.
Absolutely. I think failure is a really important thing to learn from. I've had a crazy journey with my last companies. Amazingly, each one of them is still going in some way, shape, or form. If you go to 42tasks.com, that it works. I still use it. I'm probably one of 10 people that still use it. $2 a month. That was a great plan. You know, we probably screwed up that pricing model hard. I had an education consultancy which went really well for 2 years. You know, revenue positive, no capital investment. We were helping people that didn't understand how international education systems work. Literally, like me, like when I got here, we were helping them prove that they were worthy of getting into the top universities, right?
Nice.
And it was just fantastic. And then suddenly year 3, my business partner decides to screw me. Doesn't pick up phone calls, doesn't pick up emails. Clients all come back to me saying, what the hell's going on? We want a refund. No money in the bank account. I'm like, right, what do you do here?
So you learned that lesson early.
Exactly, ups and downs, right?
So a billion dollar company.
Exactly.
All right, I got to ask you this question. You're uniquely able to probably answer this, and I want the honest truth. What's happening in Russia? Like, what is the scene like there? What's the tech scene like? Does the political issues affect, you know, any kind of commerce? Do you have to worry about what the Kremlin does? I don't know. I'm just curious.
A little bit. So it's very easy to talk about Russia sitting here in London, right? And that's the one thing. So I personally, you know, I remember Russia when it was in the communist days, and that was both completely crazy, but also very simple, and it was a very simple life where you were well looked after. Education was excellent. You know, healthcare was excellent. You had everything you wanted, but you couldn't have any more, right? So
there's a lot of nostalgia in Russia by the older people for those
absolutely
days, right?
I mean, my mother, you know, she's in her 70s. She loves it. I mean, she still thinks that communism was amazing. She's got a PhD in mathematics. That's kind of, I followed in her footsteps when it comes to that. She used to work on the Russian space program, you know, and she thinks back and she was like, you know, scientists were remunerated better than anyone else, much better than politicians, much better than anyone sort of doing any kind of entrepreneurial activities. You know, in communism it was hard to be an entrepreneur, but still, you know, the scientists, the teachers, they were the doctors, they were the ones really super respected. And so there's a lot of value in that.
Right.
And it's not like that now. But when we got out of there, when my mum and I left, it was the early 90s. It was literally the beginning of the 90s. And it was the Wild West. You know, what you hear about and what you see, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to watch some of the movies made in Russia about the early 90s in Russia.
Are there any good ones?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a list later. It's amazing.
Accurate?
Yeah, it's accurate. That's what it was like. People would drive around in their, you know, Mercedes 600s, as they were known, right?
And
which is moronic because they're actually not called that. You know, it's just like a Russian thing. And they would. I mean, they would shoot people. And they would roll up to like a corner shop. You don't really get corner shops in Russia, but like a bakery or something like that, or a gas station, a petrol station, and they'd take it. And there would be nothing you can do.
Just take it. Oh,
they would just take it. Yeah, yeah, and exactly.
Old school.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So somebody had to come in and sort that out.
So it was a land grab, a huge land grab.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Putin came along and he got rid of all of that, and he had to. So the level of political control that exists now, and that's why you hear all this stuff about like the Pussy Riot and everything. Without that, Russia would be horrible for the people. Without that, you couldn't have a business. You couldn't have a life. You'd be scared of all the gangsters. Now you're a bit scared of the government, but you know what? That's a safer life compared to what it was like in the early 90s.
I've heard this from other Russians.
Rather be afraid of the government than the gangsters?
Yeah, definitely. The government's not going to come after the small person running a petrol station. You know, the government might come after some big guy trying to make moves, political moves, something like that. And, you know, we've seen some of this happening in London, some of the court cases, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But your average Joe just trying to get on with life, no chance. You know, they're going to be left alone. Right. And tech, I mean, you mentioned tech.
Yeah. How's tech in Moscow?
Tech in Moscow is great. So the big thing I'm waiting for is for the kind of, you know, the buzzwords right now. The buzzwords need to spread, but in a good way. Not just people saying them, but like UX and data science and growth hacking, right? Like these are concepts that are pretty well established here. If you want to go and get a good UX guy, you'll get a good UX guy.
What's UX?
User experience, right?
Okay,
exactly. Yeah. That is what Russia is like.
I'm part Russian.
Yeah. That is what Russia is like.
Right, okay.
So imagine your full-time role is making front-facing like web products. And that's the level of knowledge. So the user experience kind of science that's been developed in the States and here in the UK, like proper human-machine interaction. You can do a master's degree at one of the top universities here in human-machine interaction, literally user experience. Like all of this science is not really available over there.
So they're 5 years behind.
Exactly.
8 years
exactly.
behind.
Technically, and in terms of intelligence, they're right up there. Yeah. Same thing. So they can build amazing code. They can build, you know, they're super smart and super, you know, on it, but they don't have this new level of knowledge, you know, the growth hacking knowledge that we have here. It's just phenomenal. People know all sorts of little tricks. They know how to market. They know how to build a startup. So, you know, building the product requires UX. Building the startup requires growth hacking. And if you're in data, then you need to be a data scientist, right? And so trying to do that over there in Moscow, it's hard. You don't have the people with the right kind of training. And we're just waiting for all of that to pass over. So that's why we are based here in London and we're selling to the Russian market. It's the ridiculous way around. Right? Most people are like, what are you doing? Why don't you hire devs out there for half the price and sell to here? But actually, we believe that this is the solution. The solution is to build a kind of world-class product. London is the place. There is no difference between Silicon Valley and London. The talent is as good here. You just don't, you know, you don't get people asking $150,000 straight out of university. Right. So, yeah.
What companies in London impress you? If you had to give me three, what do you really like, you know, like what's going on, whether it's a specific sector or a good business plan?
Wow, this is tough. I'm going to have to mention companies I've invested in. Is that hard? Is that hard?
Well,
can we ignore that?
As long as they're honest.
I know, I've got it, because so let me tell you in that case, it matches my point, right? So if I'm investing in order to learn from the best founders, I've seen 3 do incredibly well in my time, right? Okay. So Y-Plan, I'm an investor in that, right?
Y-Plan, okay, what do they do?
So they are an app, and basically when you want to do something last minute and it's tonight and you want to find
Y-Plan.
out,
Yeah, Y-Plan,
right?
sorry.
Y-Plan,
Yeah.
It's timeout, but in an app, heavily curated, best things you can possibly find, and an amazing user experience. I asked the founder for his UX guy, and then we brought him in for a bit to help us out during the early days.
Right, and they've gone to New York recently,
They've gone to New York recently.
How's that going?
Exactly right. It's going well. It's going well. I mean, basically, it's still early days, so the full kind of picture hasn't come together yet. But London, based on how well things went here, New York, it's going to be amazing.
Okay.
It's a tough company to build. There's a lot of things coming. It's not just a tech play. It's pulling together all of those suppliers of all of those events and making sure that they integrate and bring them on board, and curating and finding all the new ones that come up. So it's a tough one. But the founding team there, in terms of executors, unbelievable.
Okay.
They mapped out what they were going to do for a year, and then they just did it. They did it day to day to day to day. They could tell you what they're going to do on the 17th of April next year, and I bet you when the 17th of April comes, that's exactly what they'll do.
And they're British?
No, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, because I saw them at Le Web. They were... I guess the summer, the Web was here, and they spoke, and where are they from?
Yeah, so Eastern European, but I can't remember exactly
I can't remember
where.
exactly where either.
Okay.
So I love the user experience in Y-Plan. I think it's fantastic, and I've had the app now since that day. In the Web, I downloaded it, and I got like £10 coupon or something.
Did
so I was like, sure. No, but I haven't used it.
Have you not used it? That's terrible. I'm going to make you use it after.
But I need
Same
to.
with me. I downloaded it after Courtney Boyd Myers was here, and I haven't used it. And I see it on the tube, and I haven't used it.
All right, so I've used it once. It's a little bit embarrassing. Girls Aloud concert at the O2, best concert I've ever been to. It's literally reunion.
He's
Girlfriend loved
admitting
it.
a lot of things.
Girlfriend loved it. Girlfriend loved it.
That's smart. Okay, Y-Plan's 1, 2 more.
Okay, so 2 more. I mentioned this already, but let me mention it again. AdBrain, right? So this for me is the most impressive bit of tech, right? So this is hardcore tech. I mean, we're talking data algorithms that are on a next generation. Like, one of the hardest things right now is identifying what all the devices that we use, how they link up together. And in our company, in Ometria, we have the luxury of being online retailers. You have to log in to the site to really do anything. So as soon as you log in to do a checkout on your mobile, we know that's your mobile. We put everything together. But in digital advertising, you've got phone, you probably change it every couple of, maybe every year, every 6 months or something, depending on when your contract runs out. You've got your tablet, you've got a whole bunch of computers, one in the office, one at home, and so on. Like, how to work out how all of that comes together, and without having a single unifier that tells you, wow, this is this person. That is the best mathematical statistical challenge that I can think of right now, and they're solving it. And they've grown to a team of 20 within a year. They're knocking out the funding rounds. They're knocking out the customers. The customers love them. They've got a stack of signed letters of intent for more people who want to use them, but they're not ready for that. They're still in beta right now. I mean, there's one of the crazy things that they were saying to me. So there's an accelerometer in the iPhone, right? In all smartphones. Yeah. And based on how you walk, they can actually fingerprint who you are. So if they pull that out, I mean, they can identify a person.
Fingerprint.
Exactly. Can you imagine? And it's coupled with it gets connected to what Wi-Fi you're using and so on, and what GPS location you're at. There's a lot of other data points, but the fact that they're taking it to that next level is just fascinating.
So what is it? An app or an application on every one of your devices?
It picks up information from every device. So it's like it's a very heavy piece of tech that sits on a server in the back end, and it connects to basically connects to all levels of the technology stack behind digital advertising, and it allows people that want to advertise on mobile to identify the people and advertise to them across all the mobile devices that they have. And that side of it is interesting, but it's the statistical play around trying to work out when it's
there's more in that space.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, third company.
Okay, third company. Okay, this is literally the coolest guy ever.
It's an investment as well?
It is, yeah. I mean, I got to do it, but honestly, because
spoken like a true investor.
It's got to be done, right? It's got to be done.
Right. What do you got?
If you've got an audience, you got to speak to them. So Whisk, I invested in this. So actually, I tried to invest in the first round. I wasn't allowed in, right? It was like that. So Nick Holzer, the founder, was on The Apprentice. Do you guys ever watch The Apprentice?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
No, not really.
couple of years ago, he got to the final. Awesome concept, which I'll tell you about. Basically, Alan Sugar was like, what is this? I don't get it. I don't like it. And he chose to go with something else, and that obviously didn't work out, right? So then Nick came out and he carried on with his company. And it's a single click button. Again, so I love this because of the tech behind it, right? But one click, you go on a recipe site, you like it, you press a button, it checks you out of your favorite supermarket. And the tech behind that means, one, you need to integrate with that site really easily. Two, you need to scan the recipe and identify what each of those products are and match them to the products of the supermarket. But like on top of that, you've also got to match what the volumes are, you know, how much of it to buy. They've got a slider, so if the recipe is for 4 people, but you're cooking for 3, it'll tell you how much to buy automatically. If you like,
so it does that automatically?
Automatically. Hardcore machine learning.
Wow.
You know, it's just absolutely.
What happens if the offering, if you only need 75% of the butter?
Yeah, no, sure. So you still have the option.
The whole thing, yeah.
So literally a little thing slides in, right?
Yeah.
You choose your favorite supermarket, or you have it preset and stored. So if you like Waitrose or Ocado or Sainsbury's or whatever, you know, you just, Tesco's, I think, if you just click the drop down, it automatically locates the right products within that. If you don't want it, you click cancel. Or if there's multiple choices, so if it's, I don't know, like a steak or something, and there's like the premium luxury steak or the standard one, so you just click and choose which one.
Awesome.
And just, the machine learning behind it, fantastic. Tech team, you know, really, really solid. The technical co-founder, Craig, basically built this like ultimate tech team of like super nerds, in the good way. I'm like a super nerd, hopefully. And they sit there and they just crunch these numbers like crazy. Now they're doing wine recommendation digitally, like algorithm style, you know, with this food, this is the wine you should have. And they're in Birmingham, actually. They're not even a London-based company. You know, I keep trying to persuade them to come over here.
Where are they?
But in Birmingham.
Oh, Birmingham.
Yeah. Lower cost, lower office costs, low salaries, you know, really nice burn rate. They're not worried about investment, really. They're going to build this. And all 3 of these are billion-dollar companies.
Okay.
You know?
All right. I like that. A couple more questions before we wrap up. How do you hire people?
It's the hardest thing ever. I've got to hire 5 more people in the next 6 months. We found our first hire through internships, right? You've heard of these guys? And we went through like...
Is that a company called?
Yeah, literally like entrepreneurial interns, right? Like that kind of thing. And we interviewed like 40 people, and loads came with MBAs, and they were like, yeah, we're awesome. We were consultants. You know, we want 50 grand a year. We want to sit on your board. And we were like, dude, this is an internship. Like, what are you playing at, right?
So true.
Exactly. Yeah. And then he just came along, and he was like, I'm an entrepreneur. I did a company doing a mobile game, and that was really cool, but I got screwed by my development team. Then I did an agency doing some analytics, but then, you know, I found that quite hard to grow. Now I just want to get a bit of experience, and I'm going to go and do my thing again. And we were like, awesome, come join us. He's like, you know, a core pillar of the company. And then after that, we went out and we basically started looking for the devs, right? And so we put an advert on Stack Overflow. Well, I put an advert on everything, right? And we put an advert on Stack Overflow careers, and we got a bunch of people applying, and one of them was working at Vodafone in Portugal, right? And we looked at his back, and he was working in marketing. And this is for a front-end UX position, like developer. And so we looked through his background, and it was like, he's an awesome developer, but he's working as a marketer. What the hell's going on? So we got him a ticket. We put him on an EasyJet flight. We got him over for the weekend. We like spent some time with him, literally just like as a sort of, as a test experience. And he was great. And he's sitting in the office right now. We tied him down with some sellotape today, so he carried on doing some work. He's got an awesome Movember mustache, you know, and a ukulele, and he's just doing his thing, right?
He's got all the money.
It's the ukulele. I knew I was missing a prop.
You keep whoever you have who's amazing. So head of operations has been with me for about 10 years. He's been with me through Innova Capital, through all my previous companies, basically, right? So he's there, Roman, he's still there with us now. We got our content marketer as an intern. She came through another company called Inspiring Interns. She did a few months as a test run, and initially all she could do was write. You know, she was a really good writer, but she didn't really get the tech scene. She didn't understand how to kind of do the whole marketing side. Now she like runs our blog. She runs all the digital marketing that we're doing. She totally gets it. She's like, in the sort of 6 months or so she's been there, she's picked up what doing a startup is all about, you know? And then finally we've just got our ninth person, Greg, and he was, you know, a very specific kind of individual that we needed. Somebody with kind of real-time analytics knowledge, back-end stuff. So somebody who could help us expand a lot of our integrations and things like that. And actually there we went for an old school approach. We had to hit a recruiter because it's such a specific niche that we needed to fill. And we interviewed a whole bunch of people and no one quite fit. And you know, culture is so important. I bet you everybody who sits in this chair is talking about, yeah, it's all about culture. Totally true. So somebody who had that skill set and also fit with the company culture, we didn't manage to find directly ourselves through a network or anything else. So we went out to a recruiter and again interviewed a whole bunch of people and got him. So
volume. I hear volume coming up here.
Yeah.
Which I haven't heard from everyone. I mean, like, you really like to see as many people as
absolutely.
possible. And when it comes to culture, do you have to meet them multiple times, or do you get the vibe right away?
We've got a solid process, and actually, so on my blog, I've got a thing about an article about how your company shouldn't be a company; it should be a cult, right? And this is a term. It's not. I haven't coined it. It's been covered quite a few times before. But so we run it like that. As a first step, you know, we do the interview. One person does the interview, and that's the kind of, you know, the rubbish test. You get rid of the people that just don't fit at all. Then they've got to be willing to come in for a full day. And on the full day, they do a project, they do some work, and then they go for lunch, right? So that's the kind of social test. They see what's going on.
See how they eat.
Exactly, they see how they eat.
See how they treat the waiters and waitresses.
True, so true.
It's a big one. It's good for girls, too. It's a good shit test for girls. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
In tech, you normally find people treat waitresses very nice, right? Like, it's never normally a problem. Yeah. And the third one is the gauntlet, right? So if they pass the first and second, they've got to run the gauntlet. I don't know how long I can keep that up for, but at the moment it's still going. They've got to be interviewed by every single person in a row. Even if that takes 4 hours, 5 hours, it doesn't matter. And everyone has to say yes. And everybody is allowed to say no. It doesn't matter how much time we've sunk into that. If they say no, we don't like this person, and they could justify why, then we agree and we start again. Because each one of the people in my team right now, right, they are very valuable. They are a core part of the team. And if their effectiveness is going to be reduced by a new person coming in, I'm not having that, right? So the 4 founders, we're not going to allow that to happen. So we run this gauntlet, and it takes time, and it's, you know, it's a problem in terms of scaling, because, you know, when you have 20 people, what are you going to do? Have 20 interviews? So at some point it's going to have to stop. But while we're this startup and while we're loving what we're doing, this is how we're going to do it.
This is going to be a clip on YouTube called the Recruitment Gauntlet.
Yeah, another, just on the recruitment side, how do you sort of monetize it? Do you give your employees warrants and options? Like more, I know a lot of people say that that's such a big piece in the Valley, and it hasn't really transferred over here. So just out of your...
Totally true. We're doing the AMI scheme, the option scheme in January. And so everybody who joins will get options. They have to be with us for a certain amount of time. So we don't hire with options. It's not part of the starting package. Yeah. We want those people to really prove that they're going to stay with the company, that they believe in the company, that they fit in and everything else. So, you know, a couple of guys are going to get options very, very soon. We're super excited about that. You know, we're really happy for them to be supporting the company, and we want to give them something back in terms of the growth that we're going to see soon. Yeah. And hopefully the rest will also get that when their time passes, and, you know, we're going to keep doing it. There's a chance that some of the senior hires, when they come in, you know, some of the top level guys, as you build the management team and so on, we'll have to give them options straight away as part of the package. But I think in terms of employees, it's really important for them to show their dedication and not to start bargaining about, oh, you know, how many options do I get and so on.
Sure, yeah.
It's a tricky thing. I've worked at companies in the past where there was a lot of options. There was a question about vesting. There were some guesses on market capitalizations based on where other companies gone public. And I found that once the event happened, and over time, it almost was counterproductive, because people were not in the company because they loved what they did or they wanted to make it better. They were always checking their net worth. And then once they had a certain amount and it went lower, then you had these negative effects. And I don't know, it's tricky.
It's true,
It's tricky to make it work out right.
You're paper millionaires, right?
Yeah.
No, that can be
loads
weird.
of them around at the moment, right?
Sure,
You know, Ivan, we always ask everybody in this chair a few questions, and I'm going to hit you with them right now. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Ivan and give that young man a bit of advice, what would you tell him to do or not to do?
Amazing. I would tell him to not give up. So can I go back a few more years, not 20, right?
20?
No, but way more. I know, 14, 15, right? Because basically I was super nerd, right? Double super until about 15.
Double super?
Yeah, double super. And I came to this quite late, but then I discovered girls, right? Like at 15, right? I mean, this is what happens when you go to boarding school, etc. You don't really meet girls, you know, anyway. So then that happened, and programming and all the geeky stuff, which I was really good at, fell by the wayside, right? Now it was all about, hey, let's go and chill in a cafe or whatever, you know, it was all about kind of spending time with people, socializing and so on. And then that dragged out for a few years. And actually when I got to Cambridge the first time, I'd taken a gap year, I'd started my first business during my gap year. I wasn't even that interested anymore in mathematics and statistics and everything else. It was hard to get back into it. What I would tell him is actually that basically what I thought was the future, and that all of this stuff about socializing, hanging out, and just generally, you know, enjoying life, that's just a trend that you're going to get bored of very, very quickly. So don't fall for it. You know, there's no reason why I shouldn't be my CTO right now, right? He's actually smarter than me. I find that hard to admit, but he is, right? But there's no reason I can't be at least, you know, at least somewhere near his level of coding ability. And I wish I did have that. So that would be my bit of advice.
Okay, that's I haven't heard that one before.
Give up on socializing.
Yeah, don't socialize. The women are a trap.
A bit of socializing is fine.
Women are a short-term trend.
You get to the point in life where you're like, actually, you know, all this kind of sitting around a computer screen, no, that's stupid. That's not going to get you anywhere. You know, let's go and build a whole big sort of social circle of friends and have cool people to hang out with and be considered cool and all of this. And actually, that's the passing trend. You know, that's the one that doesn't stay indefinitely. All you need is a couple of strong people in your life, you know, a good sort of wife, girlfriend, partner, you know, your family, and some strong friends. And then afterwards, you can change the world, right? If you dedicate yourself in the right way.
That's good advice. I like that. On that same note, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Wow, okay, so it's from a book. It's probably not the best advice. I can't put anything in terms of the best, but there's one that springs to mind right now. And I find that I relate very well to people that read the same book at the same time. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, right? And loads of people read it. So I read it during my gap year. So the first thing I did, I left school, I got my A-levels and everything. And I thought, what do I want to be? I want to be successful as a businessman, as an entrepreneur. And I read all about like stock market investing, and it just seemed really boring. And like, you know, I'd read all about, but the big thing at the time was property. And so I read this book, and you know, in it, it says, so you can go and you can work, or you can work to build something, right? And they call it a passive income stream and all of this. But the point was that instead of doing something linear, where you have a bit of an increase and a bit more of an increase and so on, you build something that scales exponentially. And in the book, it was all about property. So, you know, you buy some investment property, you wait for the rental income, you buy another one, and so on and so forth. And actually, that was my first business. That was what I did. And then I created an estate agent out of that, and I did lots of property related stuff. But that concept of building something that's scalable exponentially, not just having a linear path through life where at the end of it you're, you know, maybe 40 times or, you know, whatever, 40 increments more than you were. What I want is to be able to do 1000x, right? I mean, people have shown that that's possible. And using that, you can then take that to the next step. So, you know, look at Elon Musk. He did a software company, quite a generic software company, and made lots of money. Then he did a massive PayPal life-changing software company, and now he's doing $3 billion life-changing companies, right? Like that is the kind of thing that I want to do. I never had such a person in my life. There were no Elon Musks at the time, but that book that I read just put me on a path of not thinking about anything linear, just thinking about how to get to 1000x in a very short amount of time.
I like that. That's very good. The last part of that question is to the 20-year-old listening to us right now on iTunes, watching us on YouTube. What advice do you give to them? You know, they want to get into the tech sector. They want to be like you someday. What do you tell them?
I guess don't be the entrepreneur, right? So don't do the 42 tasks like I did. Don't think, yeah, I'm going to build this. It sounds quite cool. People will come. I'll get investment. That's just not how it works. I think maybe this is just my personal approach, but I like to learn from people who've really done it. And everything now is available, right? So when I was 20, on the internet, you couldn't find stories about how to create a startup. You didn't have blogs. Right now, anybody who's got a successful startup, most of them are blogging about it. This is how I've done it. This is why I'm doing it. That information's out there. So before you go off and spend 2-3 years on an idea for a website that, you know, a social network for cats, that's happening. Someone's doing that now. I saw that recently, right? Before you go off and do that, like maybe just have a look at how social networks were created. Just compare that to your business model and see, is this possible? And if it's not, go and look around for a long time until you find a niche. And we think we found that with Ometria. You know, we spent a very long time doing that research until finally found that, yeah, this is what can be done. So I just say that, you know, definitely jump in, but jump into the research. Don't jump into making something because you think it will just work out.
Good advice, man. There is so much info out there right now.
Yeah.
It's really hard to come up with much of an excuse if it comes to, like you said, doing your due diligence, checking the market, even diet, exercise. There's so much info out there.
Watch every episode of this show.
Yeah, watch every episode of Silicon Reel at siliconreel.com. What did I miss, Colin? Tell me.
And read ivanmazour.com, my blog.
There we go. I think
we
we could be going on here forever. We haven't even touched on your property sort of non-tech business, or you're an author as well. So
you have to come back for London Reel, maybe.
Yeah.
I've never made that offer before.
I would love to. I would love to. Thank you.
But we could go on.
I think it's been great.
This was awesome. Thanks so much for the insight on this. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? Twitter?
So any social network. I literally have everything. So www.ivanmazour.com. Big email link on there. I post very rarely. I post every 2 weeks, maybe something like that. So I don't spam people. It's all about my journey. It's all about my learnings from investing and running Ometria and so on. And there's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Anything you can do, it's all up there. Just hit me up. Always happy to talk to some interesting people.
Okay, awesome. We have our new Silicon Reel website coming up. It's looking pretty hot.
Yeah,
looking very fresh. So that's happening. We're at Twitter at Silicon Reel. Support Colin from November. Check out your Kickstarter. We'll retweet that.
Yeah, and new website when it comes out. We're going to be looking for more help, some guest blogs, stuff like that. So if that's something that interests you, reach out and we'll have a chat.
Maybe Ivan will blog for us, or
definitely
rip a little piece of his blog.
Not a problem.
Okay, that'd be cool. Ivan, it's a huge pleasure to meet you. I saw your pictures of you at Eton on the website, and I didn't know what to expect, but actually, you're okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that. That really does. No, thank you.
That says a lot about me. So, as we say on the show, it's about the people. Thanks so much for coming. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. That went fast.
Whew, that did go fast.
It's good, eh?
That was awesome.
That was a great one.
Love it.
It was just over an hour.
You need at least 10 investments, right? Because otherwise the risks involved is just not sustainable. So firstly, before that, you have to have this money has to be losable, right? It can't be money, it can't be money that your quality of life depends on. Right, because then your emotions are going to be totally skewed in terms of your involvement with these companies.
Trader from the city. Exactly what a city trader is.